Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scarish podcast.
Woo!
Where I'm Robin Grace. I'm always going to be Robin Grace.
I was going to say, you say that a lot.
This is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we're going to tell you guys some fun, scarish stuff today.
Indeed, we are. This is the first episode in our second year, so it's like we just finished our 1-year birthday, so we're 1 year and 1 episode old. And I'm excited. I'm excited to start off this next new year with some good stuff. So
cool.
I know you're bringing your A game, and I touched on
I
one
hope
that
so. I don't know.
I know you're bringing your B+ game, solid B+
Sweet.
game.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe last night my sister was like, I'm Asian, not Bayesian. I was like, what?
Isn't that from, I don't know, The Modern Family with Asian People? I forget what they call it. Fresh Off the Boat.
It's
a funny show.
Yeah, I've seen like maybe 3 episodes.
So just so you guys know, we are recording this about as late as we've ever recorded a story or a topic episode. It's like this episode goes live for the masses in like 6 hours. So we are very tired right now. It's been a very long weekend.
It's been a very long week. It's finals week for me. So I'm just tired.
Indeed.
And it's going to be fun.
So
we'll see how this goes.
What's your topic going to be this week,
I'm
Robin?
going to cover being buried alive.
Buried alive. I'm so happy you're covering this topic because it'll again reignite the pronunciation debate of bury or bury.
I hate you.
You say it like it's spelled, and I say it like I've just always heard it said, which, you know, I start to doubt whether or not that's correct.
You could look it up and see.
I don't want to because you're probably going to be right. I will be covering the Lizardman of South Carolina, and I have danced around this topic for so long, and I finally decided to just hit it head on.
You really
so.
danced around it? I
have
remember.
seen this on the list that we have.
Oh, so you haven't actually topic-wise, like, in episodes danced around it. You're just, like...
I've started research on it and then been like, I'll save this for a different week.
All right, cool.
So I'm kind of excited to do it, but we always start off our episodes with some homegrown horrors, which, what are those, Robin?
So homegrown horrors are your paranormal, spiritual experiences that you've been kind enough to share with us.
Indeed. And if you have an experience like that you'd like to share with us, please email storytime@scarish.com. You can also fill out our feedback form. It's not really feedback. We don't care what you think about the show, so don't
Shut
send
up.
us that.
Don't say that. That's not true.
Don't go on the homegrown horror submission form and be like, you guys suck dick. Just go on to scarish.com, click contact us. She's shaking her head so disapprovingly. Click contact us, and there's a form right there that you can fill out and send us your story if you would like. If you'd like to email us, our email address is on the website as well under contact us. And if you have anything you want to send us, we have our P.O. Box address. We have a couple of packages from some wonderful fans that are on the way, and we're very excited to see what they are. I'm hoping they're not severed heads or explosives, but
God.
Who knows? It could be. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm so fucking tired. I'm going to give all the other ways that you can send us your stories. So there is scarish.com. You can email us like I talked about. Facebook.com/scarishpodcast is a way you can message us. If you go there and you want some instant feedback, which everyone does every now and then, go to the Scarish Spooky Friends group, which is attached. And you can go there and post for some instant feedback from the community. You can also join our Discord server. Best way to do that, we have a Discord link on scarish.com's homepage. Actually, any page. It's on the sidebar on the right-hand side. Just click the Discord icon. It'll take you right there. You can tweet at us at ScarishPod. Or you can message us at Scarish Podcast on Instagram. There's a lot of ways, and we appreciate all the ways you folks reach out to us. And if you reach out to us, we will try and read your story. We are almost at a 3-month backlog now, but that does not mean we are not going to get through all of these.
Well, we're going to start getting up to the point where we can't read everyone's stories, and we will try our best, but it really is getting to the point where we can't do every single one.
What we've discussed 2 options. One option is that we'll start reading more on the Storytime episodes, which is already hard because the Storytime episodes that are live is like a 2-hour episode.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we talked about was that having a production assistant to curate and let us know, hey, this is the one that we decided that we're going to go with, which is something that we know we were heading towards sooner or later. But for now, we are going to try and read all the stuff that gets sent to us. So keep sending your stories. Don't feel discouraged. And we'll try and get to every single one of them for as long as we possibly can. That said, I'm going to start tonight. And this email is Scary Story. Hope you enjoy. That's the subject. And starts out like this. Hey, Adam.
What?
No Robin whatsoever. And the reason is because this is a person I know from my former workplace that was actually sending this directly to me. I just thought it was funny that they didn't include you because they were like, oh, I'm just going to send this to his personal email. So this one actually didn't come in through Storytime.
Well, you'd be nothing without me.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. And you're probably right. So I was chatting with Justin today, and he reminded me that I owe you a scary story that I never sent you. So here goes. I can't remember exactly what year this was, but I can say it was somewhere between 97 and 99. This was a few years after the dust from the war was starting to settle and the economy was rough. The person sending us emails from Croatia. They're Croatian and they grew up there as a child
I see. Okay.
during this war. And this is a story that happened during this war. This was a few years after the dust. I read that. My mom, who owned a modeling agency prior to the war, exhausted all of her savings keeping us alive and healthy, but inevitably was unable to find work post-war to keep supporting us. In the middle of all this, my mom took a Bosnian refugee by the name of Susanna, who was in her early 20s. So she's not able to completely support her family, but took in a refugee anyways. That's pretty
really
incredible.
Solid, yeah.
I can't remember exactly, but she was very ill at the time and couldn't afford her medications and had nowhere to stay. So my mom worked out a deal with her. My mom had a work opportunity in Germany, but didn't want to take me out of school back home. So they agreed that my mom would go work in Germany while Susanna stayed in Croatia with me.
What?
Yeah, that's a hardworking mom.
Yeah.
Every week, my mom would take the train back home, drop off the money, and have just enough time to kiss me to bed before leaving back to Germany.
That's incredible.
It's funny because, like, knowing him, he's just, to me, like another 6'5" white dude that I've met. And then you hear him speak a different language. And you're like, oh, like, you're from another country. Like, you're literally an immigrant. Like, you had to grow up during a war.
What language do Croatians speak?
Croatian.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like...
And he's an amazing guy. The guy who wrote this, his name is Joe. Like, Joe's at my back in times that he totally didn't need to, and he totally could have gotten ahead if he fucked me over, and he refused to do it. And there's very few people who are like that in this world. So I love Joe. I think he's fucking incredible. So it's not shocking that his mom was like this caliber of person. Right. So I'll keep going. We were living in these 12-story apartment buildings, and we were on the second floor, and ever since we moved in, I remember having this eerie feeling but could never explain why. Most stories I've heard with these sorts of situations tend to lead up to a big reveal, and in my instance, I got the whole show from one day, followed by smaller incidents.
What?
The apartment only had one bedroom, one bed where both me and Susanna slept in, and one night I got woken up by Susanna shuffling around on her side.
Oh, no.
When I turned over to look,
I'm
Really?
scared. Sorry.
When I turned over to look, I still pretended to be asleep, but I see she is sitting up on the edge of the bed.
Okay.
She does this for about a minute or so. She doesn't move or say a word, and I'm still pretending like I'm asleep.
Demons.
Then she stands up and slowly begins to walk towards the door.
Okay.
At this point, I sit up in the bed and start to call her name. Susanna. Susanna. As she gets outside the door, she makes a left turn towards the kitchen and completely ignores me yelling at her.
It's a ghost, isn't it? It's a ghost.
Once she is completely out of frame, I yell her name once more and ask her what she is doing. I got no reply, but in that instant, from the right side of the door where the bathroom is, I see an elderly lady walk into the door frame, face me, and put her finger to her lips to shush me, and then walks towards Susanna's direction in the kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
Safe to say I didn't listen to the old lady and began to scream and shout for Susanna to come back in the room ASAP. Too scared to even get off the bed. I hate you so much. For about 2 to 3 minutes, I didn't stop yelling for her till she finally, slowly walked back through the door. Her eyes half open, half closed. I couldn't make out if she was awake or not. Back in the room, she slowly started making her way to the side of the bed. As she walks, I'm frantically screaming at her. Where did you just go?
Gosh.
Why aren't you answering me? Who is that old lady? I think these are all reasonable questions.
Yeah.
She didn't even acknowledge me, ignored every word I said, walked back over to bed, sat down on the edge, and proceeded to lay back down and fall asleep as if nothing had happened. For the next minute, I was yelling and shaking Susanna to wake up to tell me what was going on. She finally woke up and frantically asked me what's going on. She didn't remember a thing of what had just happened, and played it off as if I was having a bad dream. How do you handle that if you're the person that just like walked out of the room like, whoa, I was like randomly walking and then there was a ghost?
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, no, you had to have a bad dream because that shit didn't fucking happen. Like, I don't understand how you would ever like live with yourself after that.
Yeah.
Knowing that. A few months later, we were getting ready to go upstairs to see one of our neighbors, and they would play Monopoly every Friday night.
Aw, cute.
Susanna made a tray of sandwiches to bring up and instructed me to close and lock the door behind her. As we exited the apartment, I stayed behind to lock the door, then quickly run around to go to the staircase. By this time, Susanna is about halfway up the flight of stairs as I began to take my first step up. As soon as I looked up, I could see a figure come through the wall to the right,
oh my God.
pass straight through Susanna, causing her to faint and fall down the stairs immediately, and then back out through the other wall to the left.
What?
Susanna fell all the way down to my feet where I ultimately caught her.
God.
As I put my hands on her, she was freezing cold to the touch. She was out for about 5 to 10 minutes before
Shut
regaining
up.
consciousness, and once she did, she didn't remember what happened, but she just felt physically and mentally drained. I want to say she almost slept through the entire day the next day. Those are probably the most notable instances that occurred. After that, it was little things. One odd thing that happened was after my mom moved back, I was eating in the kitchen and a pan on the stove just caught fire. No fire was on under it,
Oh
no
my
oil in the
goodness.
pan, and about a 3-foot tall flame rose out of nowhere for about 3 to 4 seconds and scorched our ceiling. Another instance was when we cleaned this little half piano we had facing the back of the apartments. 20 minutes after we cleaned the piano, we went back outside and the entire piano was covered in mold.
What?
That's so creepy. I've had instances where I've put stuff
Shut
away
up.
and then had it all been taken out. I've told that story before
Oh, no,
about
I
the toy
thought,
chest.
okay, I thought you were going to go in a different direction because it was covered in mold. I thought you were going to say, like,
Oh, no. But the mold thing, I mean, that's all House on Haunted Hill. Or Haunting of Hill House. I forget how the hell you say that. Another year goes
so
by.
many movies named, like,
Right.
so similarly.
And tabletop games. Another year went by and we were getting ready to move to the States. As we were talking to the landlord of the apartment building, my mom told him the stories that I told her about Susanna and the old lady. The man looked at me and asked me to describe what
gosh.
this lady looked like.
It was his wife? Was it his wife?
I said elderly, slightly hunched over, short white hair, dark eyes, and that she was wearing what looked like a white nightgown. He asked us to come into his apartment and dug through a box of photos and newspaper clippings. He dug up one picture from that box. It was a clip from the obituary, and wouldn't you guess it, it was the old lady. According to him, she had lived there for about 5 to 6 years before we moved in. She passed away of old age at about 96 years old. He said she was the sweetest person in the world and would never hurt a fly, but I don't know. She sure scared the shit out of 7-year-old me.
That's crazy.
Anyways, that's my story. Sorry it took forever to get this to you, but hopefully you enjoy. Peace. Thank you for sending that, Joe.
That's really good.
That's excellent. He told me this in the break room one day, and I was getting fucking goosebumps the whole time, or chicken skin. I was just like, holy shit, you have to send that to me. So I'm very glad that he got around to sending that. And
it's really good.
It is really, really good. So awesome. And again, I can't imagine growing up in wartime. It's fucking
it's
we had
totally
people,
different life.
We had people like complaining about their upbringing in the United States of America, where it's like, oh yeah, we had it rough, and you're just like, I used to have to hide under desks because of the bombs. Did you have to hide under the desks because of bombs? It's like we had like a really successful country that I grew up in, and everything was exactly how it was here, like video games and doing this and doing that. And then all of a sudden, if you go outside, you're probably gonna fucking die. And my mom had to go to another country to find work, and we took in refugees.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can't imagine that because it's never happened to
Right.
people that like are from America. You've never ever had that happen unless you live somewhere else. It was just, it's such a humbling thing to work around someone like that who everyone like just assumes is like them.
Yeah.
Because he looks like a big tall white dude.
Right.
And then he all of a sudden talks about like his experiences growing up, and you're like, oh, you've seen some fucking shit. Like you lived in wartime. So when he told me this story, I was like, it's crazy that of all the stuff you grew up with, like the thing that scared you and stuck with you the most was
A
fucking
ghost.
an old lady's ghost.
That's so
it's just crazy.
Oh, okay.
Thank you one more time. Shout out
Yeah,
to Joe.
thank you so much. You should include me next time.
Yes, include
all right.
Robin's name.
All right. So this email is titled Ghostly Roommate and starts, Hi, Adam and Robin.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for including my name. I appreciate that.
My name's Maya. You've been the best thing Spotify has suggested ever.
Aw, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
And shout out to Spotify.
So back in the early 90s, when my mom and dad first got married and came to the U.S. from Mexico, they moved into this crappy apartment complex that my dad's older brother also lived in. Neither of them spoke any English yet, so my uncle and aunt were the ones that helped them go through the paperwork and get the place. That's really nice of them.
It's a very complicated process.
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me stories of when she first moved here and she didn't speak any English and they stuck her in high school, and she's like, what, math, speaking, reading, what?
Right. It's got to be so frightening. I cannot literally imagine being like, all right, I'm leaving everything I've known behind, traveling halfway around the world,
Yeah.
and then starting in a place I don't know, with people I don't know, with a language I don't speak.
Right. My dad worked super early every morning, so after he left, my mom would go back to bed, on their mattress, on the floor, and turn on the radio. That was all one sentence. I don't know how to read. Even though she couldn't understand what they were saying, she liked the background noise, and it helped her feel less alone. What's great about just listening to the radio and stuff, like growing up and watching anime and stuff for me, is like, you start to catch on and you learn different words. Like when I watch Korean drama,
It's true.
like you watch enough and you put the context together and you learn different parts of the language that way. It's kind of cool. So it's pretty smart that she put the radio on.
It definitely happened. My favorite part of listening to the radio is when you like kind of doze off to it because it's like kind of mesmerizing, and then you wake up to static, but you hear voices whispering to you to come to the basement.
You're so stupid. Just shut up. One morning, after turning the radio on, she turned to face the wall and go to sleep. Oh no. Okay. Shut up. All of a sudden, the radio went silent and she felt the covers slowly being pulled away from her from the foot of the mattress. She went to turn around and look at what was pulling them and realized she was paralyzed. I can't believe you said that and this shit happened. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, you knew it was going that. Like, you don't bring up a radio unless something with the radio is about to happen.
You never know. She could open her eyes but couldn't move anything else. Being very religious, her first instinct was to begin praying, smooth move. After a little bit, she was able to make a cross using her thumb and ring finger and finally broke out of the paralysis. She immediately turned around and saw no one else but her in the room. I totally expected for her to see something else. She now says she has no idea where she mustered up the courage from, but she walked over to the closet doors and opened them to check if someone was hiding in there.
Yeah, that's
no.
I don't know
Not unless
what
you
instinct
go grab
that
a
is.
stick or a knife or something.
Maybe in her head it's like there could be an intruder, or like it could be something that I need to check on. I don't know. Or it could just be general curiosity where it's like I know I should just run and hide or just set the house on fire, but I'm still very curious.
It's a big nope for me. I'd run straight past those. Once she realized she was completely alone, she noped the fuck out and ran out of the apartment.
There you go.
Luckily, my aunt and uncle only lived in the floor above, so she ran to their door and started to frantically knock. Being about 4 a.m., my aunt wouldn't wake up, so she started pounding on her bedroom window.
I hate that. I can just hear the pounding in my head.
Till she opened the door. Once inside, she started crying and telling my aunt what happened. It was only then that she finally let her know that an elderly woman who had previously rented out their apartment had passed away in it.
What's really funny about this is that these are not inspired by something that we did on an episode. These two emails that we're reading, and they're both about an elderly woman haunting an apartment they used to live in, and they're about immigrants who moved to the United States.
Okay. She lived alone in the apartment, so several days had passed until they found her body in her rocking chair.
I'm sure they found it because of the smell.
She said they didn't want to scare my mom and dad, so they decided to not say anything about it. That same day...
We decided what was best for you, and we decided to leave that out.
That same day, they put in the request to switch apartments. It was a couple weeks before they were able to move, so every day after my dad would leave, my mom would go sleep at my aunt and uncle's. She would only go back to do the daily cleaning and prepare food for when my dad got home. But she would take my cousin, who was about 2 at the time, as little kids are believed to be angels until they commit their first sin. Oh my gosh, that's scary. I mean, it's not scary, but it's like sad, you know?
I guess, yeah. It's also kind of like sweet in a way.
Yeah, until the little kid, steals a candy bar. Is that a sin?
I don't know. I think lying's a sin. Bearing false witness.
I don't know if that's a Mexican thing or a Catholic thing or just my family's thing. Okay. That's interesting. That'd be something cool to know.
Yeah.
If it's like a...
If anyone else out there had heard that before, too.
Yeah, I had never heard it when I went to Catholic school, but... different branches of the
My dad
same.
was a Catholic, and I had never heard that. Mainly because we were little bastards as children, so I'm sure if that belief existed in him, he was like, no, these children are demons.
After the main thing happened, she said she would occasionally hear her name being called out of what sounded like the end of the hall.
That's super fucking creepy.
That, dude, I'd never go back in there. Just never go back. They were finally able to move out and everything stopped and went back to normal. She felt safe again and was able to stay alone in their new place. I've always contemplated that it could have been sleep paralysis, but that was the only time she's ever had that happen. And of course, the fact that someone literally died in the apartment just a few weeks before they moved in kind of makes me think she had a real ghost experience. Sorry for the long story, but keep up the great work. Nothing makes my day more than when there's a new episode to help me get through the day.
Aw, glad to hear that.
And that was from Myra.
Well, thank you, Myra, for sending that in. That's a
Thank
really,
you so
really
much.
good story.
It was a really good story.
We had 2 really good homegrown horrors this week, so
Yeah.
you guys are really starting out this new year right. So good job, thank you. And I say new year, like new podcast year, not new calendar year. We still got
Okay.
a month to go on that. For anyone who's like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm just going to keep going. So awesome. I'm going to go ahead and move into my topic. I'm going to go first this week. And like I said, this week I felt like I needed to start off our second year of being a podcast with a bang. And this is the cryptid that I have not done yet, but I keep telling myself that I'll do later. And it's mainly because I really hadn't heard of it.
And now is later.
Now is later. Now and laters are also gross. Eat Starburst
What is
instead.
that? What is now and later?
It's just like a Starburst, but grosser.
Like a haichu?
Yeah, sure, but grosser. It's not as good as either of those
Okay.
things. But like, I'm not sure about the authenticity of this. It hasn't been around for as long, and I didn't really know about this until recently. Like maybe in the last couple of years, I've heard of it. Basically since 2015. But there's so much shit out there for this thing that it's just time we cover it. So this week, dear listener, I present to you the Lizardman of South Carolina. And what is that? Is that your lizard sound?
Yeah.
That's
Me
the
making my
worst-
tongue sounds.
It's the worst lizard sound I've ever heard. Blah. You sound like a murloc mixed with a turkey. I hate you. So despite it being known to me as the Lizardman of South Carolina, it's known more. We're loopy as fuck
I'm sorry.
right now.
I make a really good turkey sound.
I hate you. You get stuffed really well too. It's known more accurately as the Lizardman of Scape or Swamp, and I hope I said that right. And unlike most cryptids we cover here on Scarish, this one doesn't come with an extensive amount of history or lore. In fact, this story only dates back to June 29th, 1988.
Really?
So I am older than the legend of the Lizardman of South Carolina.
I'm younger.
You're younger? Congratulations, Robin. Everyone's so happy for you.
It's
but-
like BC and AD.
Yeah, I guess. We measured the
Before the
common
lizard man?
We measured the common era by he who is the lizard man, he who will rise again.
Okay, go.
So, as the story goes, this one's going to be really lore heavy. I don't have a whole lot of stuff. I'll get to the records that I did look up because there are several records that there are to look up in this case. But the story goes like this: an individual named Christopher Davis was traveling home in the early hours of June 29th, 1988. Where was he coming from? I don't know.
How do we
But
get there?
I hate you
Come
so
on,
much.
let's go.
What is this?
It's me and you and Zaboomafu.
I think you're having a seizure right now because
Shut
you're
up.
definitely making something up. But where did he come from? I don't know. And being a 17-year-old, in 1988, I imagine he was probably at an arcade or hanging out babysitting a group of middle schoolers who had a psychic friend and a friend possessed by a mind flayer. Because I don't know why when I was reading this story, I totally pictured Steve Harrington from Stranger Things as this kid because he's 17. So anyways, he's coming home and he's traveling down a long and lonesome road. And the road just happens to be at the edge of Scape or Swamp.
Okay.
And it's when he's in this area that he blows a tire. Because why wouldn't that happen in such a terrible place to
Right.
blow a tire? So he gets out to change the tire, and as any 17-year-old with gray hair would do,
Oh my god.
and he's changing this tire when he hears what sounds like footsteps.
Nope.
And I've
Get
debated
in your
about
car.
putting
Just get
footstep
in your
noises
car.
in here.
Nope.
I'm not sure if I'm going to because it's so late. But when I picture this scene, I picture the back roads of where I grew up, which is Northwest Indiana. And there's no lines painted on this road at all. It's just a thin slab of pavement, basically in the middle of nowhere, with no streetlights. But on this particular night, it's not a big deal because on June 29th, 1988, there was a full moon. And I looked that up because I wanted to know.
Really?
And you can look this shit up. And as a side note, I fucking love technology because I can just type in June 29th, 1988 moon cycle. And it pops up and
Wow.
tells me it wasn't just kind of a full moon,
Maybe
like a
that's
little
why
bit
he
waning,
saw 'em.
a little bit waxing. It was a full moon, 100% illumination. So, and we all know weird shit's supposed to happen on full moons. And this is the
I just
first
want to
time.
howl like a wolf.
Please don't do that for
Okay.
the audio. Please do not. So anyone who's driven on a back road with a full moon knows that it provides plenty of light. And I mean that. And I know that from experience because I have literally, when I was younger and stupid, turned off my headlights and been able to drive perfectly fine on nights with full moons. Because that's how much light a full moon brings down, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere and it's dark outside. So here's Christopher kneeling in undoubtedly damp, gross grass next to this swamp, trying to change his tire, and there's the sound of footsteps, and this sound is beginning to change, and it's becoming rapid, like someone or something is running. And not just that, it's getting louder,
Okay.
which can only mean one thing. Whatever he's hearing is getting closer to him. So, according to Christopher, who could, for all intents and purposes, be a total fucking liar, we don't know, but according to him, what he saw when he looked towards the swamp was enormous and charging straight at him. And what he says he saw in the moonlight was 7 feet tall.
What?
It was bipedal, so it walked on 2 feet, and it's like walking up on 2 legs like a human. And it didn't have skin, but instead it had green scales, and where it should have hands, it had 3 finger-like appendages, each with long black claws coming out of the end of it. And as if that weren't enough, because it's just always the fucking case, it also had glowing red eyes.
It's always, but I mean, animals have that shiny type
the
of
reflector
eyes,
eye,
right?
but I feel like that's more green. You know what I mean? I've never seen reflecting eyes that are red. And I feel like with all these legends and all these lore things that we've talked about, I mean, I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast, these creatures always wind up having glowing red eyes. It always happens. And like, how stupid are we going to feel if one day we find out like angels are totally real and they just happen to have glowing red eyes?
Like in
and like
Constantine?
Yeah.
How well the demons had
It's of
red
course
eyes.
the demons that have the red eyes, but like because of that stuff, we've been running away and they've all just been like, I just want to heal and protect you. Like this appearance is merely a test to see if you can accept things that look different than you.
And then they murder you.
And we're all like, kill it with fire. It's hideous. Those eyes will burn into my soul
what
forever.
was that movie that you that trailer that we watched with?
Brightborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a Superman origin story. They even have the music, and even the trailer is shot like the exact same way as like the Superman Man of Steel origin story. But it is a horror movie, and it takes a turn real fucking quick in that trailer.
When you were saying about like
red eyes.
Yeah, and I just want to help you. You know what I mean? I'm just like, nope, it's that kid
It's
gonna murder
dude.
everyone.
It's just like that's the thing. Like you always interpret red eyes to be evil, but I'm just telling you, man, you're gonna find out like those were always good guys and we were just assholes. As a side note, Superman has glowing red eyes when he uses heat vision. Pretty sure he's not evil.
You know who else does? Scott Summers.
Scott Summers? Yeah, he fucking melts down schools. Let's not talk about Cyclops. And don't mention Injustice out there if you're a super nerd and you're like, Superman is evil sometimes. And I don't care about the Red Sun either. So, anyways, getting back on track. What would you do if you saw a 7-foot bipedal lizard charging you in the middle of the fucking night? You probably do the same thing that Christopher did. You jump back into your car.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going to go toe-to-toe with this fucking thing. Like, tire or no tire, like, I'm not staying outside
I'm a drive
of
on
that
those
thing.
rims.
Yeah, like, some things I will try and engage in a bout of fisticuffs. Like, if this was a kangaroo, exactly, like, underhanded fisticuffs, like, come at thee with my curly mustache. But, like, if this was a kangaroo...
Oh, my God, if you grew a curly mustache, it'd be great.
Really? You want me to try and do that? That's the most hipster thing you could possibly do is the curly
What if
mustache.
you like it?
I won't.
Well, just
I guarantee
try it.
you. I guarantee
you should
you
try
I
it. We'll take a picture every day,
No.
and you'll keep growing it out, and we'll like
No.
have progress pictures, and
I'm
we'll
not
just keep
doing
posting
that
it.
to myself for your amusement. That takes a while.
Okay, what
and
if
I have
we
to walk around in public like that?
What if we get to a certain level of patrons on Patreon?
Oh, how about this? Since we're doing our twitch.tv/scarish podcast donation goal this month, it's $200. It's not going to us. It's going to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. If we hit $200 that we can donate to the Make-A-Wish Foundation,
You'll grow out.
I will spend a month growing in a curly mustache, which will assuredly look absolutely fucking atrocious.
Yes.
Which I really, really, really don't want to do.
It'll be great. Guys, it'll be great. We got to do this. It'll be fun.
So I'm going to get back to the scripted joke that I had.
Okay, go.
So if this was a kangaroo hopping towards me, I would be like, this is what I've waited for my whole life. Because as I've talked about before, I want to box a kangaroo before I die. And I would peel
Have you said that before?
Yeah, I said it multiple times.
Oh my goodness.
And I would peel my shirt off and I would go meet my foe. Like, that's just what I would do. But if it's a 7-foot tall lizard man, that's a different story. It's like, nah, bro, I'll be in the car. I'm not dealing with this.
Kangaroos don't live in swamps anyway.
Yeah, no shit. Thanks for that update. So Christopher, in this case, is like me. He jumps into his car, and this lizard man was, thankfully, not as much of a clever girl as the raptors in Jurassic Park, which is to say, he could not open the door. So he's fairly safe in the car. But disappointed with Christopher hiding in this car, he loses his shit. Or she. I'll go with she. I'm going to call the lizard man lizard lady. So
it could be whatever it wants to be.
Yeah, it can. So the lizard thing...
Oh my God, don't say thing. That's like the worst.
It's not like I'm misidentifying a gender saying thing. I'm talking about a fucking 7-foot tall lizard creature. I can say thing if I want.
Creature. The lizard creature.
I'm calling it the Lizard Man because that's what it's called. So the Lizard Man just fucking trashed Christopher's car like a jealous ex. Like he went full-blown Carrie Underwood on it. He ripped off the mirror. He got on top of the car and scratched and gouged it to hell, trying to get, obviously, at the tasty treat that eluded him so much. And presumably, because this is where the story ends, the dejected Lizard Man after this just fucked off back into the swamp. He trashed the car, and I imagine like he didn't run away like he ran up, but he like sulked away like super disappointed, like I wanted to kill someone
like
tonight.
Shoulders slumped over and head looking down.
Like the old Incredible Hulk TV show when he like walks off into the distance all sad and they play the sad music. That was the Lizard Man at this point because he didn't get to eat a human being. So what's weird is that that's where the story ends. And obviously we all have questions at this point. Like, did the kid get back out and finish changing the tire? Because if he did, I have doubts. Like, say what you will about my car maintenance skills, but if a 7-foot Lizard Man is attacking my car, a flat tire is still roundish. And like you said, I'm turning that car on. And I am not taking my foot off that gas pedal until I'm at my house. Like, I don't care. Sparks or smoke.
Not
or
even at like gas station. You have to get home.
I'm
Police
going home.
station?
I'm going straight home because like I'm gonna go home and be like, okay, I'm at my home base now. Come at me, bro. And I'll feel at least a little bit safer. Plus, I feel like a police station, like if it's between you and your house, maybe. But police stations are never that conveniently located. I guess if I wanted to like ask the firemen to fight something for me. Like,
I have been watching a lot of fireman movies lately.
I hate you so much. You've been watching a lot of, what is it?
911
Hallmark movies lately, and they're all just so terrible. And maybe at some point, and I thought of this when I was doing this, maybe at some point, Scarish will have enough pull that we can actually interview some of these people or just send them questions. Because I would really like to know, like, did you finish changing the tire? Because that's important to me. Now, I'm going to give a little...
This guy's real.
This guy's a real person. This is a real story. And as a side note, I mean, it's a story that was told. But as a side note / theory, I'd like to say I was 17 once, and I did some stupid shit late at night sometimes. And this is a 100% true story. So when I was driving, I got a car. My dad gave me a car when I was 16. We were talking about how, like when you're 16, like you get a car, and if you don't get a car, you're still stuck at home. But once you get like that car, you have this sense of freedom, you know, like you're not stuck at home all the time anymore and you can go places.
I don't know what that feels like.
Well, you're a liar. But anyways, my dad was nice enough to get me a really cheap beater car that had a good warranty on it. It had a bad transmission, but it was a 4-seater. The only thing I told my dad, because he said like, hey, I'm going to get you a car when you turn 16. What do you want it to be? Don't pick anything expensive. And I was like, I know you're going to get me a car that's like makes sense financially, so just don't make it red. It's like, I think red attracts cops. And he went out and he picked like a $3,000, $4,000 car. And of course, it was fucking red. And it was a 4-seater. And all the other things that I used to do, because I've talked about how the car looked like a Crown Victoria, so I used to pull people over.
Yeah.
The other things that we used to do were just like pack everyone into my car and go places. And like, for whatever reason, one day, sometimes this happens. Sometimes people on a like 2-way street that's 2 lanes. So it's a small, narrow street like you have in like places like this. People will cross the lane a little bit. And you have to kind of ride the shoulder to make sure they don't hit you.
Right.
Because they're assholes. And you have to honk at them to let them know, like, get the fuck out of my lane. So someone did that, and I was really annoyed. And when I honked at them, they freaked out. And they, like, adjusted back into their lane. And I could see that they were freaking out in their car. And I thought it was so funny that I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to honk at people and swerve like they're in my lane, even when they're not.
You're a dick.
And I called it the swerving game. So one night...
Oh my God, you named it?
Of course you name things when you're 17. So we're on the back roads of Indiana, and I have a bunch of people in my car, and there's a truck coming, and he's totally fine. And I'm like, I'm going to play the swerve game. So he starts getting closer, and I jerk my wheel, and I honk my horn really loud, and he freaks out and tries to adjust in his lane. But
you could have caused a car accident.
But the thing about what I did was, I went a little too far onto the shoulder. So I went half on the road, half off the road, and I cut my wheel back as hard as I could to try and get back on the road. And as I did this, there's a mailbox coming at the car. So I'm like, I'm going to fucking decimate this mailbox. And I was able to get my car back on the road just in time where it only clipped my side mirror. But the thing about this mailbox is it must have been destroyed a lot or hit a lot because these people had built like a metal cage to have their mailbox inside, to ensure that if a vehicle struck it, the vehicle would like take on as much damage as possible,
Right.
and the mailbox would remain intact, which it did, because when it hit my car, it just showered sparks across the fucking side windows. And my friends, because I was cutting the wheel back to bring it back on the road, their faces were pinned up against these windows.
God.
So they just see sparks flying across. So they freak the fuck out. We pull over. My mirror is gone. Like, that side of the car is just gouged to shit. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like an animal had attacked my car.
Oh my goodness.
So, of course, I did what every normal 17-year-old kid does when they get home. I totally lied to my parents. I just told them that he was in my lane and that's what happened. Because it makes the most sense, you know, like, make it sound like I wasn't being a stupid asshole and putting all of our lives at risk because I was 17 and a moron.
Yeah.
And if my mom's listening, I apologize because I'm not sure if she's ever heard the true version of the story before. And she does listen to the show.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that I'm a better liar than Christopher Davis.
You're such a ticket.
But when I rolled into my driveway with my car all fucked up, my head didn't immediately jump to 7-foot-tall Lizardman.
Did you say moose?
No.
Deer?
I just told you. I said he was in my lane. I said he actually had been in my lane.
Okay. Oh, so you didn't like make up the whole hitting the mailbox thing. You're just like, yeah, I hit the mailbox, but it's because of someone else.
Yes, exactly. Okay. I was like, hey, this person was in my lane. I had to swerve to get away from it. I wasn't like, we were in the swamp changing a tire and this giant lizard creature came out of nowhere and he fucked up my car. I swear that's what happened. Because when you hear about it in that context, like, it's a 17-year-old kid. It very well could have been complete bullshit. But I don't know if he lived with his parents. I don't know the situation. And maybe his tale wasn't a lie. Maybe something did attack Christopher. And I mean, we've all seen videos of like those cute dogs and cats that stand on their hind legs like people. So maybe it was a fucking alligator. You don't know. Maybe an alligator figured out how to walk on its hind legs with its tail. I mean, kangaroos can balance on their tail. I love kangaroos. I can't wait to punch one in the face. And
Jesus.
Why do I allege alligator instead of crocodile as a side note? Because I went to the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources website and investigated, and alligators are the only crocodilian native to South Carolina. So it could have been an alligator. And as a side note,
on its hind legs?
They live up to 60 years and they get 13 feet long from snout to tail.
It.
So if you stood one up, it's about 7 feet. If you're not like having the tail count. So I'm just saying, maybe you don't know.
They've evolved.
Just trying to say, maybe this cryptid is real. Maybe Christopher's not full of shit. And maybe one of these scaly bastards was trying to show off his new trick. And Christopher didn't appreciate it. And if that were the case, I think the lizard man would be a little bit pissed off about that. And he would trash his car. So it's not like Christopher only told his parents about the car incident. Like, the story hit the local news. I mean, it hit the newspapers, it hit the radio, it hit the TV. So if this was a lie, this took on a life of its own because local businesses started making Lizardman t-shirts, capitalizing on the hype. People started going out to this swamp to see what they could find. Mm-hmm. And after all this Lizardman hype, shocker, more sightings started to come in. So it's like Christopher was like, look, see, I wasn't lying. Like, other people are seeing this. Police received a call 2 weeks after about the vandalism of a car. And the home happened to be very close to the scape or swamp. And the car had its fenders ripped off,
Whoa.
Deep scratches along the body. The chrome trim appeared to have been chewed off in a bizarre manner.
If you're talking about the bumper and stuff, a crocodile or an alligator could easily just grab it and yank it off and scratch it from the bottom.
The chrome trim being chewed off was weird, but at the same time, like, that's something an alligator could do too. And this is my favorite part. The antenna had been bent. And what's so funny about that, I would like sincerely to believe the lizard man is 100% real. And after just fucking this car up,
he's like,
he just looked at it and like surveyed it and then just bent the antenna and then like nodded to herself like, yeah, like that's how it should look. So that wasn't the final car attack either. Multiple reports came from people traveling on that road that summer that claimed to see either a giant bipedal creature looking like a green, shiny, scaly man that was super tall, creeping around the swamp, and other people said they had car damage as well. Other cars that were parked nearby the swamp also suffered damage, described just like the first, where the fenders were ripped off, like the railings, the trim, or whatever were all chewed up, and I'm sure the antennas were bent, because fuck those antennas, right?
I don't know. I have a plastic one now. And
yeah, that would just break right up.
Right?
It's not good for vandalizing.
I'm just thinking, like, does your car insurance cover that? Like,
no,
lizard damage?
Lizardman attack? I mean, maybe in South Carolina. Another possible explanation I'd like to toss out there, and this is just the skeptic in me, is that when this thing took on a life of its own, teenagers in this local area basically got a get out of jail free card, so to speak, for vandalism if they just made it look like the Lizardman. And holy shit, man, I wish I was a teenager in the summer of 1988 in South Carolina, because I would have been fucking up some cars and been like, Lizardman. Because, I mean, I don't know if you ever keyed a car. I haven't, but I really want to.
Sometimes I really want to. Sometimes, okay, people are assholes.
Yes, they are.
People are really rude, and they're really mean, and when I see them park where I'm about to park, like, sometimes I walk by their car, and it's so tempting to just be like, no one's looking, but then you're like, be a better person.
I want to do that when I see people park in handicap spots that have no handicap stickers, and they like run out of their car and they're not hurt at all.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe they have some sort of an anxiety thing, or they actually have handicap sticker that they just didn't put on. So I'm like, I'm not going to do it.
Mine is when they cut me off and honk at me like it's my fault.
I've been a lot better since we met, because I used to stare at people when they fucking act like assholes. And then she grabbed my earlobe when I tried to turn my head one day. And I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that anymore. Like, it's just antagonizing these situations. But I'm just saying, like, it really does sound to me like this is some shit that kids could have done. I'm getting back to the list.
I know, I was going to be like, oh, that was a road rage corner.
Right. So the local police nearby claim to have found foot/paw prints in the mud around the swamp.
Okay, what shape?
So it was 3 toe-like appendages, and they actually took a cast of it. And as a side note, at this part, the actual cast looks so very horribly fake.
Really?
It looks terrible. It's in the College of Charleston. If you want to Google the image, maybe I'll have it up on the website. I will have a different image up on the website, which we're going to get to here.
You should post it to the Instagram.
The local police, I might do that, in fact. The local police claim that they considered, quote unquote, contacting the FBI regarding this, but thought better of it. And I'm just like, sure you did, because you didn't want anyone to come in and actually investigate this shit. That's what that sounds like to me. So you're probably thinking like, well, this all settled down eventually, right? Well, yes. That said, there was a local radio station known as WCOS who offered, no bullshit, a $1 million reward to anyone who could catch the creature, with the condition of it had to be alive.
Oh my goodness.
So if there's a 7-foot tall lizard creature, these people are giving people $1 million to go catch this thing alive, and no one thought like, maybe if there actually is a creature, this could be a bad fucking idea. And then another individual came forward on August 5th of 1988 with a sighting, and they reported they were hunting the Lizardman near the swamp and had sighted it. They had a pistol with them, which they claimed they drew and fired, striking the Lizardman's scaly hide. The Lizardman fled, and this man named Kenneth Orr was like, well, I have to be telling the truth. Here are some scales and some blood. See, this is the truth. To which the local police responded, do you have a permit for that weapon?
Wow.
To which Kenneth responded,
I know for this one.
Shit. So, all right, there you go. Hot fuzz. And the sheriff said the scales appeared to be from fish, which, as a side note, this guy had to be a total moron to think the size of scale from a fish would in any way, shape, or form match the size of a 7-foot tall lizard. It just makes no sense. It was just like the worst thing ever. And they then, of course, filed charges against him for unlawfully carrying a pistol.
Wow.
And they arraigned him, and during that arraignment, Kenneth Orr, who clearly did not understand what those charges were for, admitted that he was totally fucking lying.
Ugh, of course.
He did not see a creature. He was making it up. He wanted to like perpetuate the myth of the Lizardman. And the sheriff then brought him up on a misdemeanor charge of filing a false police report.
Oh, man.
I found the article from August of 1988, and the newspapers are basically like, this guy is the stupidest criminal we've ever had in court. And the police are all like, we just want this to end. Like, let the Lizardman fade. So it was after that the Lizardman hype really did start to die down. But that hype had literally thousands of people all over that swamp during the summer of 1988. And the reason I know about this story, dear listener, is because on August 2nd, 2015, 3 years ago, Sarah Barra, which wins the award for the best name ever. It's 100% true. I found all the articles. She shared a photo of what appears to be the Lizardman, and she claimed to see the creature as she was leaving church. She pulled out her cell phone and snapped a picture, which we all say, like, if aliens exist and all these cryptids exist, where's the cell phone video? Where's the cell phone picture? And Sarah said, fudge it, I'm taking out my cell phone. I'm snapping a shot of this. Now, I'd like to remind everyone that this took place in 2015, and like I said, that is only 3 years ago. And we all know how good cell phone cameras have been for a while.
Yeah.
They've been like really high in megapixels and you can zoom in a lot. And that said, maybe it's possible that Sarah Barra's cell phone was a bit older. Not everyone has like a brand new iPhone or whatever. But I will now show Robin the picture that is supposedly proof of the Lizardman's very existence and ask her to describe it to you. So Robin,
better not be a jump scare.
Please, it's not a jump scare, I promise. Please paint us a word picture of what I am about to show you.
Okay, hold on. Let me warm up my literary prowess.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here it comes. This is the Lizardman, according to Sarah Barra.
That's some fake Power Rangers shit.
Describe what you're looking at.
It looks like one of those monsters from the old school, like 1990s Power Rangers. Like, it just looks like a dude in a suit that you can make. And it's just like,
describe the eyes, the lifeless eyes.
The tail looks horrible.
It's just like hanging straight down.
Yeah. It looks like they took a model of a kangaroo and tried to make this outfit out of it. And it has more than 3 fingers. It has
I think it has
4
3 fingers and a thumb for some
yeah.
reason.
It's just not good.
When I saw this, I was like, this is clearly not the picture. This is the joke picture someone else has perpetrated on the internet. This is the picture.
No.
So I shall now continue. She wrote an email to ABC News 4 plus other local media outlets and attached the photo. In her email, she's quoted as saying, quote, "My hand to God, I am not making this up. So excited. And I hope there's a follow-up that I missed where she was struck by lightning and killed for lying."
What if, okay, I know it looks fake as
if
shit.
this was real?
But what if it's real and none of us believe it because it looks so fake?
It really, really does look
and
so
what
very
if it's
fake.
completely legit and we're all just non-believers because
and this thing is totally real.
we
like,
don't want to believe it's real. Like, right? Oh, man.
So
it's
after
just
this
crazy.
came out, a man released a video of the supposed creature that he claimed to have taken in May of 2015. So another person came forward and was like, "Hey, I took a video a few months ago. I didn't release it."
Do you have the video?
It's just blurry garbage. You
Oh.
can check it out on the internet if you want to. They did not release it originally out of fear that people would think they were crazy.
It's like the video from Signs.
The video, no,
where
it's so
where
much
you just
better.
see the alien walking
That's
across.
so good, but no, it's nothing like that. The video is blurry, and it's like the creature's so far away and out of frame. It's basically like you can see something moving in the forest. It could literally be anything.
Oh, okay.
And he's like so convinced that it's the Lizardman. How he identified it as such is beyond me. So was this an epidemic of terrifying proportions? Like when we talked about the Jersey Devil, how it's just like terrorizing people and the National Guard got called in.
Yeah.
Well, not really. The local Chamber of Commerce, when this was going on in the 80s, is like, "Yo, dogs." This is a quote. This next part is a quote. "This is really good for the community." Like, no bullshit. They actually said this. So it's not crazy to think that they just decided to keep this going because of tourism. Because tourism is a big
Just
business.
like the Mothman.
Just like Mothman, although Mothman, when we covered it, that's some fucking creepy shit.
Yeah, no, but
So,
like it's like the community.
They have the
right.
celebration and everything.
Can I?
And like,
I'm gonna take this picture down. It's creepy.
I have to take it down because you're using your mouse to your computer, and that does not cross over.
Okay.
You can't. It's
That'd
like
be
you're
so
Marvel
cool,
and
though.
NBC. You can't cross over like that.
What if they do one day?
No,
there has to be a crossover that's already existed.
Oh, they've crossed over a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Superman can lift Thor's hammer. I don't know if you guys knew that. So, okay, I'm going to keep going now before this gets super, super nerdy. So any small town that gets this sort of attention, like I said, is going to financially benefit. So do you think that's what's really happening recently? Well, in 2017, the town actually warned people that the solar eclipse that was to come, that we were all so excited about, like all over the world, was likely going to lure the creature out of hiding, and everyone needed to be on alert.
So they're making shit up.
Well, they said like, well, the solar eclipse is such a big deal, he's going to come back. And people all over the country at the time were traveling to different states to have a better view of the eclipse. We have friends that drove to Oregon from Las Vegas. And that's a really long drive. Like, that's legit. It's not like that was just a couple people that did like somewhere here and there. Like, people were legitimately just driving to the nearest spot where you could see the full solar eclipse, because it's this monumental thing that you're only supposed to see once in a lifetime. So, you know what other state had the eclipse pass directly overhead?
What?
South Carolina.
No way.
So Bishopville, which is where this all took place, was tossing out the old Lizardman warning, and that may have been a bit too on the nose for something so tourist heavy, especially with so many people coming into South Carolina, because the eclipse traveled just right over it. And Bishopville was just a little bit off center.
Wow,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's not like it would have been the primary spot for people to go. It wasn't directly in the path of the eclipse. It was just right next to it. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Lizardman warning, eclipses trigger this thing.
Wow.
Beware. So last but not least, this year, 2018, was the 30th anniversary of the sighting. So were the sightings of that creature perhaps gonna like spark back up again? Was it gonna come out of hibernation or something like that? No, but they did have the first ever Lizardman Festival.
Oh, that's cute.
So maybe Christopher Davis did see something 30 years ago, and maybe it was in fact a Lizardman. Like, you guys know that I'm a hopeful skeptic, but I am a skeptic. And on this one, there isn't a lot you can really say definitively. It is a new cryptid, and all we have to go on are eyewitness reports that have been done in the last 30 years. It's not like this is something that's been around for thousands of years. But when you think about what could happen in the next few hundred years when people talk about the Lizardman,
Yeah.
it could be talked about with the fear and reverence that we talk about things like werewolves and vampires.
Yeah.
And now when we look at stuff like this, we look at the origins and we look at the pictures that people are trying to say is like definitive proof of existence.
Right.
It's just like cringeworthy. And to think in a couple
Yeah.
hundred years, people are going to be like, no, it's real. Like, have you heard the legend of the Lizardman? So I'm not saying...
That picture looked more like an armadillo.
Well, I'm not saying that 100% sure it's fake. But what I am saying is that, like, we have a picture from 2015, and I literally wrote this in my script, that looks like a knockoff Goldar costume straight out of a 90s Power Rangers episode.
High five!
I knew you were going to go there, too. And, like, aside from that, the other thing that we have is some dude who just, like, named Kenneth Orr, who completely admitted that it was a hoax and he was lying through his teeth about what he saw, but he wasn't the person who originated it. And if you want to go see it for yourself, you can go to Bishopville, South Carolina, because they're going to be hosting their second annual Lizardman Festival on April 26th to the 28th of 2019. And like we always say, it's up to the audience to decide. And if you want to like go there,
Take
and
pictures.
have a table, you can get a table I think for $50. You can have an artist table for $100. I might have gotten those backwards, but you can go check it out. They're going to have cosplayers and all that fun stuff. So
Sounds cool.
it's one of those local legends that I've always thought was silly, but after looking into it, I'm like, it's silly, but it's also kind of fun. So if you don't take it too horribly seriously and people don't get too pissed off about it, like, you're going to have to go to scarish.com when this episode comes out to see the picture of the Lizardman, because
Or just go to Instagram.
It's just fun. It'll also be on our Instagram, but yeah, whatever you guys want to do. But yeah, that is the Lizardman of South Carolina.
Cool. That was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Before we get into our next topic, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Modern Physics. I'm sure you guys have heard of us talking about Modern Physics before.
It's spelled Fizzix, not the traditional sense, the fun fizzy sense.
And they actually have awesome bath bombs, bath salts, stuff like that. So if you guys are looking for gifts for your loved ones, go to modernphysics.com, Fizzix, and use the promo code BASEMENT, and you'll get 30% off your entire order.
And let's be real, some of you out there are listening to this right now, and this is like, oh no, I need to get Christmas gifts for this person.
I didn't realize
and this person
it's
and
2
this
weeks
person.
from now.
It is literally 2 weeks from now. And if you go to the website, it will let you know whether or not it can fill your order before Christmas. And if you go there right now, and it can, it is a good way to get a really good quality product for 30% off right now. And it's thoughtful. Everyone takes a bath every now and then, and to say like, hey, this smells really nice. This looks really nice.
Treat yourself.
It's really a good present, and it's a smart idea. So go check it out. See if there's anything on there that you think could help you through the holidays.
And if it doesn't get to ship to you on time, they do have gift cards.
This is very true. So lots of good ideas for you folks. We're trying to save you that pain of like texting people on December 23rd, like, your gift's going to be late. No one wants to be that person. So go check it out. Modern Physics, Fizzix.com. So Robin, you have a topic this week too, right?
Yes. So my topic that I'm going to cover today is buried alive.
Alive.
It's not like super cool, like magic tricks getting buried alive type thing. But I'll get into it. So I'm sure many of you out there might have a healthy, irrational fear of being buried alive.
I have a unhealthy, irrational desire to bury people alive.
What?
So I'm the other end of that. I'm just totally fucking
Oh
kidding.
my God. It's like, what is wrong with you? Okay. If you don't have that fear, then you're braver than I am, because I am totes afraid of ending up 6 feet under and suffocating to death.
I've watched Kill Bill Volume 2. I think I'll be okay.
You just like do the 5-finger death punch type thing.
I mean, I don't want to correct you and be that guy, but that's not the 5-finger death
Whatever.
punch she does right then. That's like the 1-inch punch that she's doing right then. She saves the 5-finger palm exploding palm technique. I can't remember. 5-finger death punch is banned. That's all I know.
I know. That's the only thing that I could think of because I know it's like, whatever. I don't care. Okay.
So anyways, in the Superman Marvel crossover, God, this episode is just full of fucking tangents.
It's just like, I am not a historian. I don't know a bunch of
historians
stuff.
would know about
I don't
5-finger
know.
death punches.
I don't know pop culture references all that well. You know what I mean? So
I can attest to this. There's a lot of things that
So
pop
don't hate.
culture wise she does know.
Yes.
Sometimes they don't line up.
No. So I'm sorry for anybody who loves that band. I've never heard them, but I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to keep going now. So this is definitely going to be a continuation of my it could totally happen train because I think the realistic shit freaks me out the most. And there is a name for this particular fear, and it's called taphophobia. It's the fear of graves and the fear of being buried alive, you know. And legend has it that even George Washington, while lying in his deathbed
I thought George Washington never told a lie.
In 1799, made his attendants promise not to bury him for 2 days.
Wow, just to make sure?
Just to make sure, because he didn't want to get buried alive. And then there's even a London Association for the Prevention of Premature Burial that was founded in 1896 by a William Tebb and Walter Hadwin. And this is obviously a pretty big deal for this topic. Like,
there's like organizations that are trying to prevent it from happening. I don't know if you have this in here, but I'm very curious how often it actually does happen.
So before the age of modern medicine, ending up buried when you were incorrectly pronounced dead was not unheard of because they didn't have all those cool fancy gadgets that we have now where you can check your heartbeat and brain waves and all that stuff. But there were devices invented in attempts to combat the occurrences of premature burial.
Like the bell?
Yes. So back in the day, they obviously didn't have the fancy technology. So people weren't able to be resuscitated like they needed to. Or people would be like, they have this illness, they're dead. You know what I mean?
They have toe foot. Seeing that turn into knee leg.
Then there's the fateful magic trick. So people trying to perform some crazy magic trick, some stunt like Harry Houdini, and they had every intent to escape their little underground prison and just...
Harry Houdini didn't die from being buried
No,
alive.
I'm just saying they wanted to do some crazy magic trick like Harry Houdini.
So,
yeah.
Okay. They were all trying to compete with the crazy shit that like the famous magicians of the day.
Right. And obviously they don't all work out. Granted, many of these stories of people being accidentally buried alive may just be exaggerations or urban legends and just people kind of talking about these instances that are happening. And
I can just imagine being a gravekeeper and hearing that fucking bell ring.
Oh man, nope, big ol' nope for me. There are legends that include someone entering a coma-like state and waking up only to die being stuck in a grave. Like, how would you really know that story of them dying in there if they died in there? Like, oh no, yeah, they had a coma and they woke up. You know what I mean? How do you know?
It's like a writing prompt. Like grave robbers go in to steal jewelry off of a corpse. They open the goddamn casket and the person's like, oh, thank you. I just woke up. That was horrible.
Others say that when they open up the coffins, the corpses look as if they've grown hair or fingernails with their hands and with the palms facing up. Like
that's creepy.
Yeah. Regardless of whether or not the numerous stories of being buried alive were overestimates or not, it became inspiration for literature writers, including Percy Russell and Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe actually wrote a number of stories featuring the idea of being buried alive, including one called The Premature Burial. And the fall...
It happens to everyone, I swear.
And the... Oh, God, shut up. And the fall of the House of Usher. Attempts to prevent death by premature burial led to the creation of different types of quote-unquote safety coffins. And there were coffins with glass lids. There was the attaching of the string to the deceased that led to a bell in order to notify grave attendants that they're still alive in there, or even adding breathing pipes into the coffins. And according to the internet...
Which is 100% true all the time.
Yeah, you always believe the internet.
I saw a Lizardman today, people.
Shut up. According to the internet, it's thought that the sayings like Saved by the Bell and Dead Ringer are both derived from having the rope attached to the bell outside the coffin.
That sounds right.
But, I mean, you're not actually sure. You know what I mean? It's been debunked, supposedly. I don't know.
So, I don't know if you have this in here. I don't like stepping on your toes, but I am engaged with your topic. Is it true that the bell could be like accidentally rung by like the body decomposing?
Yeah, absolutely.
By like gas leaving the body or whatever? That's so creepy because it's like expected for
Yeah.
that fuck. So you'd ignore the bell if you were like a seasoned gravekeeper. And it could be ringing, and you're like, same shit, different day. And there's someone down there like, get me the fuck out of here.
You never know.
That's why if there's a bell in my grave, I'm going to ring it to the theme of Terminator. It'll be ding, ding,
God.
ding, ding, ding.
I think if you woke up in a coffin, you would not have the patience or the calm.
No idea how dedicated I am to a joke.
Okay. But all I know is Saved by the Bell will always be that TV show growing up
With
that
Zach
had
Morris.
no. That's the name of the character, right?
Yes,
I was going to
that's
be
the main
like
character.
Mario Lopez? Is he in it?
Yeah, he's AC Slater.
Oh
how
my,
do you
how
not
do
know
you
these
memorize
things?
the names?
Because he was in love with Kelly Kapowski.
What? Did you watch this show?
Fuck yeah, I watched Saved by the
really?
Bell. Oh yeah.
I've never watched
even the
it.
college years, which were so bad.
The only one I know is Screech.
Screech is so bad. Dustin Diamond.
I don't know any other characters. I just know Mario Lopez because he's kind of pretty.
There's two. I hate you. So there's two things about Saved by the Bell that I remember, and one is that at some point, I think Jessie was her name, developed a no-dose addiction because they couldn't deal with any actual drugs on the show. Like she was studying really hard and she was taking no-dose to stay awake.
Wow.
And they basically acted like she was fucking just doing rails of cocaine. And then of course she went on to be in Showgirls where she just, just went the opposite end of Saved by the Bell. And the other one was they had some episode about like smoking weed where they're just like acting like this will ruin your life.
Jeebus. I don't know if you guys ever watched Degrassi, but I watched Degrassi growing
I thought
up.
everyone when they talked about that was talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson and pronouncing it incorrectly.
No, so I watched Degrassi. It had Drake in it. It had Drake in a wheelchair. He wasn't
always in a wheelchair.
He wasn't
though, right?
always in a wheelchair, I don't think. But I'm pretty sure he got shot or something. I don't remember. Anyway, the kids in that show straight up do cocaine. There's a kid that like plays guitar and he just does cocaine all the time until one point he's like up on stage about to play a set or something and his nose starts bleeding because he's been doing so much fucking cocaine. That show is just like light years ahead of shows like Saved by the Bell. It's just like, what? Okay.
Well, it's like when you watch shows like Saved by the Bell growing up and they don't prepare you for that, and then you're out at like your first nightclub and you see people doing lines of cocaine off the fucking bar. You're like, I don't know how to deal with this. All I know how to deal with is no-dos.
Okay, so anyway, I just hope that when they designed these safety coffins and they designed certain things, they thought of how they could possibly go wrong. Because I'm just thinking, did they make the air pipe like face just a tube that goes straight up into the air? Because imagine when it rains and you get this torrential downpour.
Just drowning them.
And you're just drowning them. Or like bugs will get in because they smell rotting flesh and they're just like, I'm going to crawl down this tube and eat whatever delicious meals waiting for me down there.
Yeah.
I
mean,
so
you could
just...
you could put like a screen over the tube and you could just put like one of those little like tops on top of it. Where it's like basically an umbrella, so the rain doesn't get in and the bugs can't get in unless they're really small. Look at you,
little engineer.
I just don't want to die in a coffin, that's all.
Okay. A man named Robert Robinson. Aaron A. Aronson. So Robert Robinson died. It's really late, guys. You guys have no idea.
We've been watching Hot Fuzz a lot. Those are two Hot Fuzz references.
Anyway. Robert Robinson died in 1791 and had a movable glass pane put into his coffin and had his coffin then placed into a mausoleum so someone could come and check to see if he breathed on the glass. And
I don't know if he breathed on the glass, but someone drew a dick in there.
Oh my god. You're so stupid. So anyway, he told his relatives to periodically come check on his grave to see if he was really dead. That's how paranoid this guy was. In 1890, a family designed and built a burial vault at the Wildwood Cemetery in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, And it had an internal hatch to allow the victim the opportunity to escape in the off chance that they were prematurely buried.
That's smart.
And it's kind of like that hatch in your trunk. Yeah.
They
Have
didn't
you
used to
ever
have
been in
them.
there
In my
to
trunk?
check, to look? I haven't looked.
I've ridden in trunks before.
Do they have those?
Some of them had them. Some of them didn't. They weren't standard for certain years.
Okay.
When you grow up in a place with a drive-in movie theater, someone's gonna go in the fucking trunk because they charge you per head.
What?
So yeah.
Not car?
Sometimes they do per axle, like how many wheels you have.
Whoa.
Sometimes they do per car, and then you don't have to hide. You just have to cram as many people into the car as possible.
All right.
But when they charge you per people in the car, then it's like, okay, how many people can we fit in this fucking trunk?
Jeez, I did not know that. That's good to know, I guess. Please, people, don't try that. It
No,
doesn't
don't do
sound
that.
safe.
It's not safe.
In 1990, yeah, dude, imagine if you got into a fender bender or something, and it wasn't just a fender bender. It was like, hold on, let me
That's what
crush
everyone-
the entire.
That's what everyone always says. It's like, what if we get rear-ended? It's like, well, then I'm fucking dead, okay? But I'm not paying $5. I don't make a lot of money at Subway.
That's ridiculous.
It's my first job. Subway sucked.
I forget
Minimum
what
wage
my-
was $6 an hour when I got my
Wow.
first job. I used to work 9 hours,
I'm
5
pretty
on
sure-
Friday, 4 on Saturday, just enough to ruin my fucking weekend.
My first job, I got paid $9 an hour.
Well, fudge you, Robin.
I worked at a bookstore. I worked at Borders.
How'd that
It was
go?
great.
Subway's still
I
around.
loved
That's
it.
all I'm saying.
Oh, that's so mean.
Taking shots at Borders.
That was rude.
Should have paid everyone $6 an hour. You'd have been all right.
Oh, wow.
I'm kidding. Don't pay your employees shit wages.
Yeah, please. Fair wages for everyone. Okay. So, 1955, a $5,000 Italian casket equipped with a call for help ability and survival kit went on sale. 1995, people. 1995.
People
and they
are
were
still
making
that
these.
afraid of these.
The coffins also had two-way mics and speakers and could communicate with someone outside. It also included a torch, a small oxygen tank, and a sensor to detect a person's heartbeat. It even had a heart simulator. Stimulator.
I was gonna say simulator.
Stimulator. It's so tired.
It's so tired.
It's late. Anyway, so I'm not sure if people actually bought it, but you never know because there are so many.
At least one
At
person
least one
bought
person.
that.
But then what? Okay, so you buy it, you put your body in it. They're really, really dead this time, and then you wasted all that money on all these super cool gadgets.
So then you dig it up and take it back.
Oh my god!
You can do that with some stuff, like toothbrushes. Like, just take them back once you're done using them.
What?
You've never done that?
Toothbrushes?
Yeah.
From what?
Use it for a year, you take it back to Walmart.
Ew, you're disgusting. Okay, so anyway, there are those apocalypse preparation type people out there.
Doomsdayers.
And, doomsdayers, that's
Doomsday
a good
preppers.
and it's quite possible that they bought a whole bunch of them. You never know.
I feel like, in defense of doomsday preppers, which is not a sentence I say often,
Okay.
they have better things to spend their money on than, like, caskets that'll let them get out if they need to. I think they're more into buying, like, a bunch of canned foods and
Do
silver.
MREs expire?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think they eventually do, but I don't know.
I know my friends that are in the military will tell me if
Right.
MREs expire. But I've had some before. They're not that bad.
You know what sucks about making fun of doomsday preppers? Is at some point the world is going to end or things are going to go to shit, and they are going to be the people that are completely prepared. And you're going to have to go knock on their door like, can I come in,
What if they
please?"
die before the apocalypse happens?
Man, that'll be nice.
Wow. You're bad this episode.
So tired.
Okay. You need to put a filter on your mouth.
There is no filter.
Okay,
That's
so-
all that's coming out.
Sounds so gross. Okay. So being buried alive, if you're not found in time, can lead to death in a number of ways. Obviously. So asphyxiation,
You said it right?
asphyxiation, dehydration, starvation, or even hypothermia when it's cold. I mean, you're down in the ground. It's going to be cold.
Right.
So even if they had a breathing tube that was added in there, there's no way for people to find out that you're in there. What food would you eat? What water would you drink? Where would you make your bowel movements?
You just shit your pants. I think that would be the least of your problems, is saving your dignity at that point.
So apparently in ancient Rome, these things called Vestal Virgins were priestesses of the goddess Vesta that took a vow of celibacy for a period of 30 years. And apparently, like, their virginity or like their celibacy was linked to the fire that they had to keep alight in Rome. I read a whole bunch of it. It was really strange, really interesting. But they took this vow of celibacy for 30 years. And if they broke this vow and did little bow chicka bow bow, they would technically be buried alive.
What? So they would do. I was like, how is this going to tie in? Are these the people that check on the coffins?
No.
If they break their vows, they'd bury them alive.
They would bury them alive. They did it in a very specific way. They built a nice chamber to put them in. So a nicely built chamber, comforts, tables, chairs, stuff like that.
Oh, wow. So they got a whole room.
They were ceremoniously lowered into it before the ladder was taken out of it. And they were provided with a small amount of food and water, and they were just left there to die.
That's fucked up.
It's because it's because they're not allowed to spill the blood of these Vestal virgins. They're not allowed to spill the blood of it, of them, sorry. And so they were just put in there to just rot away. And
so it's like they're not allowed to kill the Vestal virgins by taking their blood, but leaving them to rot is okay.
Yeah, that was the way they got around it.
I just don't understand some of these fucking traditions.
I know, it's insane. And these women could live long enough to experience each stage of their death slowly, like tormenting them. It was horrible. And then in feudal Russia, live burial was used as an execution method known as the pit.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, and it was used against women who killed their husbands. It's fucked up.
That is fucked, because all I'm thinking is, like, they probably deserved it.
What?
I'm just saying, like, I saw
the husbands deserved it.
Yeah, I've seen Dolores Claiborne. I grew up and I saw that movie. It's a movie that we're going to have to watch.
Okay.
It's basically just like, you're going to get the gist of it. I mean, if we're going to watch it, you kind of got the spoilers already. Okay. But yeah, the chick's husband dies and everyone thinks she did it. She did do it.
Aside from punishments, there's the reason of religious servitude for burying individuals alive. And in Africa, 2 live slaves, a man and a woman, would be interned with each dead headman, like each dead chief.
So if the chief died, 2 people had to be buried alive with them?
Yes.
That sucks.
Yeah, so the man would be buried with a hook to use to cut wood. I spelt wood as Woult. So they would be buried with a hook to use to cut wood for fuel in the next life, and then the woman would cradle the dead chief's head in her lap. In 1849, an observer of the funeral of King Tian Tri of Cochin, China, don't know how to say that, I don't speak Chinese, I'm sorry, reported that the king's childless wives were entombed with his body, guaranteeing that he'd have like women to serve him and make him meals and shit all through eternity.
Because he's going to be lazy forever. Make your own fucking meals, bro.
Or just pump out babies. You don't have to go in there.
Yeah, that's really fair.
No, it's not fair, but...
stupid. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. And then, as for unintentional live burials, accounts of finding exhumed corpses with nail and hair growth are sometimes misinterpreted signs of decomposition, kind of like the idea of vampires.
Yes.
So, it's like a whole thing with vampires, this whole undead thing. But despite this reasoning, there are a number of reported incidents that do seem to be real, of people actually being buried alive.
That's fucked up. You know what? I'm not saying that this is really us. It's not the solution, but it's a solution. Maybe we just don't dig them up, because you just never.
Fucked.
I'm just saying. Sometimes it's better.
I put that joke later.
Do you? Yeah. Well, you took my Power Ranger joke, so we're fucking even.
Okay. During the 14th century, the tomb of a philosopher by the name of John Duns Scotus was opened, and he was found outside of his coven.
His coven.
He was found outside of his coffin with torn and bloody hands, as if he were trying to escape.
That's fucked up.
That's the 14th century, so 1300s.
Right.
That's crazy. During the 17th century, the plague, cholera, and smallpox were abound. You know, people were dying left and right.
It was a cool thing to do back then.
He had to die to be hip. William Tebb, co-founder of the London Association for the Prevention of Premature Burial, compiled 219 instances of escape from premature burial, 149 of actual burial, 10 cases of accidental dissection before death.
Oh my God.
And 2 cases of embalming of the not yet dead.
Well, now I have 2 new things to be fucking horrified of. Dissection before death and embalming before death.
Well, haven't we watched an episode of some medical show where the guy like dies every day?
I don't know. That's not ringing a bell. I remember seeing someone get embalmed alive and they died. And that was X-Men 2.
Oh.
And that was adamantium they
No.
were embalmed with.
Okay, just no more. We need to stop with the comic book references this episode.
Do
many.
not tell me what to do.
So, anyway, Alice Blunden was someone of notoriety when it came to being buried alive because according to an account published in 1748, she was buried alive not once, but twice.
That's just the worst fucking luck.
The first of which happened when she drank a large amount of poppy water, which is created from poppy seeds that act as an opiate or a narcotic. Pretty much
so she was real fucked up.
Yeah, pretty much like a sedative.
She probably woke up like, oh, I'm still really high. I'm hallucinating that I've been buried. Oh, shit.
She couldn't be woken up. So she could not be woken up. Her husband was like, she's gross. She drinks all the time. She's horrible, fat, and lazy. She's dead. And so...
He pulled the plug on her, so to speak.
An apothecary concluded, in 1748. So an apothecary concluded that she had died. So she was buried. And days later, boys playing near the grave heard a voice. And imagine if that were you and you heard voices coming from a grave. Like, I would freak out. I'd be out of there.
I would try and go talk to it.
What if it's a ghost?
Well, you know what? Maybe I'm about to make a ghost. Because if you run away from that, it's definitely going to haunt your ass.
Okay. So what if you buried a pet? Like a dog.
I hate you.
Or a cat. And you heard barking or meowing in the middle of the night.
I dig it up.
So, that's where my joke was.
Sometimes Dad's better.
Okay. God, you ruined it. Anyway, I literally wrote, insert sometimes Dad's better joke here. Anyway, her grave was opened and they found her body to be pretty beaten. And it was thought that Blunden had done the beating herself from inside trying to get out. They couldn't detect any other sign of life, so they lowered her back in.
Oh my fucking God.
They left
Maybe she was just taking a nap after trying to escape for so long.
They left it open to get the coroner to come check it out the next day. And so when they came back, she was even more beaten and bloody. She had like blood coming out of her mouth and stuff. Like she was like all sorts of messed up. She'd torn part of her sheet that was wrapping her, and they were like, oh, she's pretty dead this time.
I think she's dead now.
But no one was convicted of her death.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the end of Alice Blunden. In the 1850s, a young girl visiting Edisto Island, South Carolina. Whoa, South Carolina.
Does she fall into a swamp?
Marries the Lizardman.
I was going to say becomes the Lizardman.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
No, that's not what happens to her, unfortunately. It's much sadder. So, this young girl in the 1850s was visiting South Carolina and died of diphtheria. And diphtheria? She was...
dip.
She was... Oh, my gosh. She was... What?
It's a song from the 80s. Fuck
Okay.
you. How about that?
She was interred in a local family's mausoleum for fear of spreading the disease. And when one of the family's sons died during the Civil War, they opened the tomb back up to place him in it. And a tiny skeleton was found on the floor right behind the door.
Wow. She got out and tried to get out of the mausoleum. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's super duper sad. It was even published in the British Medical Journal in 1877. And the declaring doctor was given only 3 months jail time for involuntary manslaughter.
Wow.
3 months for just letting this little girl die.
I mean, maybe he really thought she was dead. So.
I mean, well, granted, she did have this disease. I don't know. It's just sad. An article from the New York Times on January 21st, 1885, recounted a case of a man from Buncombe County. They named Jenkins, and his body...
Jenkins is a character from Adventure Zone. He's just a giant asshole.
Oh, to me, anytime I hear Jenkins, I'm like, Leroy Jenkins.
Oh, yes, that too.
His body was found turned over onto his stomach in his coffin and had a bunch of his hair pulled out. There were also scratch marks visible along all sides of the interior of the coffin. On January 18th, 1886, it was reported a girl named Collins from Woodstock, Ontario, Canada, was found with her knees tucked up under her body and her burial shrouds torn to shreds. Why these bodies were exhumed in the first place, I am not sure. But it happened. And now I know that medical technology these days is light years ahead of the days where doctors were buying cadavers from grave robbers. And having watched a ridiculous amount of medical shows recently has made that abundantly clear. I don't know how many times we've heard time of death in the past week. It's insane.
Lots of Grey's Anatomy, folks.
Yeah. And I'm watching like The Good Doctor and New Amsterdam. But anyway, on the flip side, it's not an exact science, obviously. Someone can be totally immobilized, practically in a vegetative state, but they still have signs of brain activity. But it's like, oh, they're clinically dead, whatever. And then you could have your heart rate slow down to the point where you're thought to be dead, but you're not quite dead yet. And people could just be like, oh, no, they're dead, whatever. It's a scary thought. And in 2005, a body bag, 2005, 13 years ago, a body bag was delivered to the Mater Reese funeral home in Ashland, Massachusetts, with a live occupant inside. Luckily, the funeral director discovered them and called paramedics before beginning embalming.
I will say that has got to be the best news to give a family like, you know how we delivered your so-and-so's body to the funeral home? Turns out we fucked up. They were alive.
You could totally sue them.
Oh, yeah. This whole scenario is just reminding me of Death Becomes Her. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good. We're gonna watch it.
Okay. It definitely wasn't the first time a live body was found in a body bag. It's happened before 2005, and I don't know how many times it has happened since. It's crazy.
I would hope that at least once it was a prank that went really well instead of really, really badly.
God, no. So even more recently, in 2014, in Macedonia, Greece, people discovered that a 45-year-old woman was buried alive and died of asphyxia after being clinically dead by a private hospital. And the idea of it being at a quote-unquote private hospital is even scarier. Like, we're privately funded, therefore, I don't give a fuck about you, really. I'm just going to get you out of here so I can get more patients and make more money.
I thought something that would be privately funded should be, like, up to a better standard, you know?
That's what freaks me out is, like, it's a private hospital. You pay for higher, like, services,
better
right?
quality service, yeah.
I don't know. Whoever's a doctor out there, explain the difference to us because we are not medical professionals or scientists or anything. So she was discovered shortly after burial by children playing near the cemetery. And they heard screaming from within the ground. Oh, man, those kids must freak out, dude. I don't know how they're brave enough to be like, dude, we gotta, like, check it out.
They probably get all excited about it. Like, do you hear that? It sounds so cool.
In 2015, again, in Macedonia, Greece, a 49-year-old woman was buried alive after being declared dead due to cancer. The family reported hearing screams at the cemetery shortly after burial. She died of heart failure within the coffin.
So she was scared to death.
Yeah. An investigation found that the doctors administered medicines that led to her falsely being declared dead and buried alive.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's
basically what I'm hearing is don't go to Macedonia, Greece.
Oh my God. No, poor Greece. Stop it. This episode, I'm not going to go into the whole group of people who were kidnapped and then forced into being buried alive because that's just a whole other thing. And it's just a little bit too much for this episode right now. And
this is a fairly long episode.
Maybe if you guys are interested in the future, I'll do some true crime type thing with being buried alive. But right now, I'll leave them out. And I obviously haven't even scraped the surface of being buried alive. There's so many stories.
Get it? Scraped the surface? Like trying to claw your way out?
I didn't even realize that.
We're going to claw our way out of this topic.
But there are just so many instances, so many reports, so many people that have had this happen to them. Maybe I'll do a whole nother episode with a whole bunch of other stories.
It's like Ouija boards. Cool. There's always more stories.
So for now, I will leave you guys with the idea that you might never know what'll happen to you. And maybe you want to be like George Washington and tell him, like, don't bury me.
Give me 2 days.
Just yet. I want more than 2 days. Is that weird?
No, I think we should do a topic on being cremated alive, except you can't really check afterwards.
Well, see, that's the thing. I literally wrote that in here. Like, just think of cremation, and they're just like, oh, just put them in the fire. It's fine. And then you're screaming from the inside of this oven.
And that's the thing, though. If you're the person in charge of cremating and no one else is around, that problem's going to take care of itself one way or the other. So, just saying, don't be that guy.
There's so much fear involved. And if there are any morticians out there, I would love to get some cool tidbits, some cool stories about the biz. I think that'd be really neat. But yeah, that's my irrational fear of being buried alive.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
Very, very good. So I think we had a solid episode 53. I'm happy with how this year has started out. So we hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. And again, if you want to reach out to us with anything that's happened to you or anything that came to your brain while you're listening to us, you can email storytime@scarish.com. You can also go to facebook.com/scarishpodcast and message us there. You can join the Scarish Spooky Friends group from there and get some instant feedback if you'd like to post there. We also post a bunch of fun memes or just creepy stuff that we find on the internet. You can also go to scarish.com if you want to reach out to us and click on Contact Us. You can get our P.O. Box address from there as well. There's a form you can fill out where you can send us your story, or you can just send us an email like the normal way. The email address is there, and all of our social medias are linked to our site as well. If you want to join us on Discord, you can go to scarish.com and find it there. It's a fun little chat room app. We have like 170 people in there now. It's really fun. You guys keep joining. We keep posting silly stuff. My favorite channel is the Dad Joke Corner. It's always so good.
I like the memes too.
The memes are also really good.
I just posted in the cornfield today.
Yeah, because we had corn tonight. And there's always topic suggestions, which is nice to have them. If you want to tweet at us at Scarish Podcast, and at Scarish Pod. If you want to talk to us on Instagram, at Scarish Podcast, because our naming conventions are never the same.
It's hard. There's a lot of different scary-ish things out there.
Yeah, it's weird. If you want to watch us record Storytime live, we are recording Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is West Coast time, on twitch.tv/scaryish-podcast and youtube.com/scarish. I just gave Robin this look like, I don't remember if any of this is correct, but my mouth is using muscle memory.
There's a lot of stuff that you can reach us at, obviously. Please check them out. Please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/scaryish-podcast. Anything you guys want to help us with is great. We are so close to getting to that goal where we're going to go see the Winchester. It'll be great. But I am in the process. It's finals week for me, so it's a little hard. But I am going to hand make all of the zipper pulls for this season, the winter season's badges, and mail out our corn stickers too. Those are awesome. To our Badge of Honor patrons and above. And so if you guys want to join us and be part of the Children of the Corn, it'll be great. Please help us out, or go to coffee.com for one-time donations, ko-fi.com/scaryish-podcast. All those donations will help us upgrade our studio setup. So,
and if you would like to join us on the live broadcast, you can donate to us on twitch.tv/scaryish-podcast, and all donations during the live shows are going to go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation for the month of December. And like I said, if we get to the $200 goal, which we have, I will apparently grow a curly mustache.
Yay!
So I think that is about everything we have for episode 53, unless you can think of anything that we missed.
All I'm thinking of is that song from A Million Ways to Die in the West where he sings about a mustache.
Oh,
a mustache,
yes.
a mustache.
I will not be singing that. So.
Oh, man, come on.
I think that's about everything we have. So I'm going to go ahead and do the sign out. So keep on creeping on, and we will talk to you guys later this week. Bye.